WGDH, Hardwick. Also online and occasionally in back alleys.
You're listening to In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR 91.
You're tuned into WGDR Plainfield, WGDH Hardwick. This is Gar College Community Radio, 91.1 FM and 91.7 FM. You're tuned into In the Weeds. It's a Monday morning. We've been working really hard this last couple of weeks, guys, to get our computers and stuff like that fixed. And it's not looking like we did a good job on that right now. But anyways, we're here, guys. You're there. Big shot, Brandon Barberio, who should be on the line with us right now. Brandon, you there?
I am. Good morning. How are you, sir?
We're doing all right, man. We are doing okay. We're back in the studio. We had a couple-week layoff here, which was, one of them was, nothing that we wanted to do, but unfortunately things happen. But we're back. We have Todd Romboli back on with us. He was going to be on with us a couple weeks ago, but unfortunately, due to the weather and the internet and phone issues we're having here at the college, we're unable to get that show off the ground. But we're here again this week, and it's going to be a fun conversation. So if you guys have never heard of DOMMlife before, we're going to have them in studio today, so don't miss the show. And Brandon, you guys still
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about this DOMMlife. You've been there, right?
Yeah, dude, DOMMlife's awesome. So DOMMlife here, my understanding how this all really got started was DOMM, so Delivery of Medical Marijuana. But it is also a wonderful place to come and meet your friends. It's also a consumption lounge. It's also an education hub. It's also, it's everything and anything and everything. And that's why I thought it was so important to have Todd Romboli on the show.
And there's nothing really like it here on the East Coast. I mean, I know you guys got stuff like this out there on the West Coast, and we've just had our first cannabis cafe of such open in LA. So a lot of cool things going on with that, guys. We're going to go right to the news. We'll be right back with Todd Romboli of DOMMlife. Don't go anywhere. This is In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio with Joseph Smith and Brandon Barberio. This is Joseph Smith of In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, and here is your local and national Canna news for November 15th, 2019. California study to research safe pesticide levels for cannabis. According to a Capitol Public Radio report in January, researchers at the California Department of Pesticide Regulation and Sacramento State will offer cannabis users a $20 gift card in exchange for them anonymously sharing how much cannabis they consume in an effort to help determine accurate safety levels for pesticides used for cannabis cultivation. Charlotte Philippe, a spokesperson for the regulatory agency, said neither federal nor state regulators have any good idea on pesticide use when it comes to cannabis, and in order to calculate those levels, officials need to know how much cannabis people are consuming. Philippe had told CPR, "We had talked to people in other states and looked at tobacco levels, and we didn't actually have any data on cannabis consumption itself. If it turns out that people are eating a lot more cannabis products than we initially thought, we might need to lower the levels." The agency plans to set up tables at dispensaries throughout the state and ask customers to take a 20 to 60-minute anonymous survey detailing how much cannabis they have smoked, ate, or used in topicals, and where they had purchased their products and whether they had shared them with others. Interested individuals can also sign up for the survey online. According to CDPR data, there are 36 active ingredients allowed to be used in cannabis cultivation in the state of California. Another 46 are banned. Following legalization in the state, the failure rate for pesticide levels in the state's industry was about 20%, but by November, that figure dropped to about 14%, according to an Associated Press report. Amazon sued for firing a registered medical marijuana patient. Last month, a former New Jersey Amazon warehouse employee identified as DJC filed suit against the company for wrongful and discriminatory termination at a county court. Last Friday, the suit moved to a federal U.S. District Court for the state of New Jersey, meaning the ruling could have nationwide consequences. According to the suit, DJC failed a drug test ordered by Amazon in August of 2018. The suit claimed that under Amazon's rule, DJC could appeal his weed-related termination by providing proper documentation for his medication. However, Amazon said he could not appeal since he did not inform the company of his medical cannabis use beforehand. Furthermore, DJC alleged that he was effectively blacklisted from not just Amazon, but from all Amazon properties. He claimed that after Amazon canned him, he tried to apply for a job at Whole Foods, a grocery store owned by Amazon, but was denied employment due to his drug-related termination. DJC's attorney, Walter Dana Weinman, said to New Jersey Law Journal that he believes Amazon's anti-weed policy is flatly illegal. The suit cites both state and federal laws as basis of its complaint. In July, New Jersey passed a law that banned employers from terminating qualified medical marijuana patients simply for consuming cannabis. That law is currently being reviewed by the New Jersey Supreme Court. The federal law cited in the suit, the Americans with Disabilities Act, bans employers from discriminating against employees with medical disabilities. The U.S. Supreme Court has yet to rule on whether medical cannabis patients are protected under federal laws, since cannabis remains illegal under the Controlled Substances Act. In the past, state Supreme Courts have handled cases similar to this one, but rulings have been inconsistent among individual states. Asked for whether or not Amazon's owner, Jeff Bezos, supports legal cannabis remains a mystery. Bezos has kept quiet regarding what he thinks about responsible adults legally consuming cannabis. Massachusetts cannabis regulators quarantine vape products. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission has quarantined all vaporizers except those designed to exclusively vaporize cannabis flower for medical use patients. The move comes less than a week after the Federal Centers for Disease Control linked vitamin E acetate to the vape and associated pulmonary injuries. The substance was found in illegal and counterfeit cannabis vape pens products. Last month, following the rise in reports of the illness throughout the United States, Governor Charlie Baker ordered a 4-month ban on the sale of both cannabis and nicotine vaping products. That ban was ultimately challenged in court. Last week, a state superior court judge overruled part of the order, deciding that medical cannabis patients could buy vape products unless the CCC ruled otherwise, according to a Boston Herald report. The judge said that only the commission had the authority to ban medical cannabis products. The CCC last month announced that they would require more detailed labeling of all cannabis vape cartridges, extracts, and concentrates amid the outbreak. Under those requirements, manufacturers must include on their ingredient list every additive used in the product, including thickening agents and specific terpenes. Dr. Peter Grinspoon, a primary care clinician at the Massachusetts General Hospital, said during a press conference that the ban could drive everyone to the illicit market, which is where people were likely getting the products that they were making them sick in the first place. Cannabis Control Commissioner Shailene Title said that the ban is not open-ended and is based on incredible evidence. California continues unregulated cannabis bust. The City News Service reports California law enforcement officials have eradicated 953,000 cannabis plants from 345 grows throughout the state as part of their campaign against marijuana planting program. State Attorney General Xavier Becerra said the crackdown has also led to seizures of 168 weapons. This year, the camp teams, which include federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, have served more than 120 search warrants. As of July, the California Bureau of Cannabis Control and the state's law enforcement agencies have seized a combined $30 million in cannabis products, cash, and weapons. Becerra's announcement came the same day as the Kern County Sheriff's Office said they eradicated more than 10 million cannabis plants in the counties, valued at $1 million. The sheriff's office said the plants were grown under the guise of legitimate hemp operation. The sheriff's office said the plants were grown under the guise of a legitimate hemp production on 459 acres. Preliminary tests showed that the levels of THC in these fields were well over the legal limit for industrial hemp production and were, in fact, cannabis. A September United Cannabis Business Association report found that there were about 2,835 unlicensed cannabis companies in California, with just 873 licensed operators, and the state's legalization market has been marred by lower than anticipated sales, partly due to high tax rates, all of which has led to officials cracking down on illegal and unlicensed operators. The FDA approves Yale Medical Cannabis human trials. According to the Connecticut Public Radio report, the Food and Drug Administration has granted approval to the Yale School of Medicine and CT Pharma for human drug trials to study the efficiency of cannabis-based medicines. The study will be the first with FDA approval to test cannabis on human subjects. Yale University School of Medicine's Dr. Rajita Sinha, the lead researcher for the clinical trial, said the studies will attempt to figure out how medical cannabis works, who it works for, what symptoms it can be alleviated, dosages, and whether there is a need for refinement. Michael Fidel, a board chair of Portland, Connecticut-based CT Pharma, told CPR that he hopes the study will result in the first FDA-approved cannabis-based medicine to be manufactured within the United States. Fidel told CPR, right now, a company in England, GW Pharma, has the only FDA-approved plant-based medical marijuana product in our market, as we know, Epidiolex. That really shouldn't be the case with respect to the American companies. According to the FDA, the agency is aware that there is a considerable interest in the use of cannabis to attempt to treat a number of medical conditions, and does support research into the medical use of cannabis and its constituents through cooperation and with other federal agencies involved in cannabis research. According to a Hartford Business Journal report, Yale indicated the first phase will examine men and women between the ages of 21 to 45 who use cannabis recreationally but do not qualify for medicinal use. The second phase will focus on men and women ages 21 to 60 with chronic pain. Each participant will receive a placebo, CBD, and THC. Side effects such as vital signs of heart rate, systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and clinical symptoms will be assessed. California suspends 394 cannabis permits. The Associated Press reports California has suspended 394 cannabis business permits, affecting about 5% of the state's legal supply chain. The move will temporarily reduce the number of legal cannabis operators in the state amid crackdown on unlicensed operations. The suspensions include retailers, distributors, delivery services, and micro businesses that have not completed steps required for the seed-to-sale tracking system, METRC, according to the Bureau of Cannabis Control. Bureau spokesman Alec Traverso said all the suspended businesses had ample time to complete the requirements, and the companies must stop all operations until their licenses are reinstated. He indicated that the requirements only take about 3 hours to complete and doesn't think any of the companies will refuse to comply. California has 7,392 licensed cannabis businesses. The Bureau oversees 2,630 companies with either provisional or annual licenses. The State Department of Public Health oversees another 932 manufacturers, while the Department of Food and Agriculture oversees 3,830 farmers. Josh Drayton of the California Cannabis Industry Association said that the action incentivized the illicit market, which he called a much more affordable option for consumers. He added that what regulators and the industry should be focused on is access and affordability. According to the MJ Biz Daily report, the suspensions apply to 63 retailers, 61 delivery services, 47 micro businesses, 185 distributors, and 29 distributors that are transport only. And that's it for your local and national Canna news for November 15th, 2019. All right, we are back. I think everything's going here now. So give a big shout out to everybody who's tuned in right now. If you guys can't tune us in, you can find us always at www.wgdr.org or at stoneagemagazine.com, where you can get the live streams as well. If you guys want to reach out to any of us, just reach out to us if you want to get to be a part of that. So it's a lot of fun. We are sitting here in studio. I'm talking to my co-host Brandon Barberio from Phoenix, Arizona, and we also have Todd Romboli on from DOMMlife. So guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, give us a call, 802-454-7762. Otherwise, let's get this show rolling. All right. Right. All right, so we have Todd Romboli. Todd, are you still there?
I am. I'm on the line.
All right. So, Todd, you are the founder, one of the founders of DOMMlife. So, let everybody know a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how you got into this cannabis business.
Sure. First of all, thanks, Joe and Brandon, for having me on the show. It's a real honor, especially kind of in my home neck of the woods of New England. I grew up in Randolph, Mass, just south of Boston, and went to Tufts. So, I want to give a shout out to all my family still up there, my cousins up in New Hampshire, and all my old coaches and my boys from Tufts. What's up, guys? So basically, after graduating Tufts, I moved to New York to start my trading career. Ended up with a football-sized tumor in my upper right thigh. In 1994, after I had it removed, I was supposed to move to Chicago, but instead I decided to undergo radiation treatment on my leg for 7 weeks, and then I moved to Chicago. Radiation, I still have side effects from to this day. So not a giant fan of the traditional methods of treating cancer. But that's later in the story. After that, I moved to Chicago and traded bonds for quite a few years. And then I kind of took 10 years off to explore the world and travel. I was exploring basically cannabis, culture, and cuisine. I've been to 6 of our 7 continents and spent 30 days on each of them. You know, I've lived in jungles and deserts and beaches and huts and mountains. And people all over the world are pretty much the same. You know, it's like everybody, argues about the same things. Everybody cares about the same things, and for the most part, people don't want, big houses or fast cars. People want to be happy and healthy and feel safe and secure, and that was kind of a big, eye-opener to me, traveling the world and seeing that we're all the same, and when I came back and decided to get into the cannabis industry, I had always kind of had my vision set on delivery. I've driven all over these countries. I love to drive, and I'm kind of a logistics freak, figuring out the best way to do something. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line type thing. And obviously, 3 years ago when I started the delivery, it was, the industry, the entire economy is moving towards an on-demand lifestyle. Whether it's Uber Eats, cannabis should and is the same way. So I started DOMM as a delivery company, and then as I was learning how difficult it is to acquire a lease or any sort of conventional business asset that you need in the cannabis industry, it was much harder to come by. The minute you tell anybody you're in the cannabis industry, they usually run or double the price on you. So that's how I ended up purchasing what ended up being our DOMMlife building. And, when I was married at the time, and originally it was the vision of my ex-wife and ours, travels throughout the world. And we had bought a building that was 4,500 square feet inside and 3,500 square feet outside. So it was quite an investment. And at the time, we did a cafe in the front because we were doing a lot of juicing and really being healthy. And at the time, my ex-wife was a boutique specialist, so we had clothes up front and then a salon and spa in the middle. And our delivery logistics, which were the offices, were run out of the back. And this was, again, before the hemp bill was passed, so even CBD back then was somewhat questionable. And then once the CBD law passed around, December of a year ago, we kind of got rid of the boutique and moved to, an optimized version up front, which was CBD and cafe. And now our middle section, we're actually renting out to other cannabis brands so they can operate under a friendly environment. One of the real reasons for the building was that, when you think of the cannabis industry, you basically either think about, a dispensary or a grow, the two big verticals that have licenses attached to them. And that's what I thought, and then once you get into the industry, you realize there's hundreds of other ancillary businesses that support those two giant verticals, whether they're networking groups or education or doctors or, the whole non-THC side of the business, which is CBD and, all the other healthy plant-based alternatives. And those people, those small business owners really have nowhere to go. You can't even go to Starbucks and hold a meeting and mention cannabis. They'll throw you out. So it's really become a shared workspace and, what we like to call just a cannabis-friendly environment. And that's really brought together the community under one roof, which, again, in a business where, there's legal hurdles and different rules for different people in different states, education becomes our number one job. Basically I feel like I'm a coach or a general manager just trying to put my team in the best possible place to succeed, give them the most information as possible, then have them disseminate that information to, sick patients, which everybody that walks in our door is uncomfortable or in pain, and when people are in pain, they make bad decisions or, they do things that they normally wouldn't do. And really, we're just trying to educate people on how they can choose alternatives to big pharma and alcohol and, all the stuff that was glorified to us on, when we were growing up. Really, isn't that great for you? And all the stuff that we were told is the devil's lettuce and you can't touch that ends up being the miracle plant. So it's really been, we're fighting hundreds of years of bad information and terrible laws stacked on top of each other, and it's really just our job to get the good word out there. So that's kind of how I landed here. And again, there's every single person in this industry has their own story. Just like I told you about my tumor and my bad experiences, every person that walks in our door has something similar, whether it's them or their family member or they just buried a family member or a best friend. And, we have people call us every day. I've been doing the Tylenol and tequila painkiller recipe, and that isn't working anymore. And I'm like, I know, and so it's really just getting the word out there and being here for people. And like I said, we deal with people that are in pain every day. The legal compliant deliveries that we make to our marijuana customers. When I started this, I thought that 50% of them would just be people ordering it, almost as a convenience. And it really turns out that 75 or 80% of our deliveries are made to people that are either bedridden themselves or are, surrounded by incapacitated family members, et cetera. So it's really been, an eye-opening experience and certainly fulfilling.
Right, I can only imagine, man, especially in Arizona, because it's really tricky there, isn't it?
It is. The laws are super strict here. One of the advantages to me landing in Arizona and picking, this state to implement my concept is that Arizona has pretty clear, hard, straight rules, unlike California, where in one municipality this exists if you're on one side of the street and the other this exists, and it's decriminalized, so that means anybody can sell it out of their car. No one really knows, And in Arizona, the rules are strict and clear, and, it's really just a matter of us having created a mechanism that allows us to operate a cannabis-friendly environment where we still don't fall into any of the dispensary or cultivation definitions, which is we don't sell or store any cannabis ever. So for us, we just kind of created our own environment, and we allowed all of the networks of the cannabis industry to come and operate here, and we really have a positive just experience for everyone. Everybody's happy that they can come here and relax and be safe and discuss cannabis and discuss different strains that help their different issues. And again, everybody's a patient.
Right. Now, and you started this out because DOMMlife wasn't necessarily a facility, right? You guys were delivering medical to patients, right?
Exactly. Yep. DOMM originally was just delivery of medical marijuana, and we just shortened it to DOMM. And then when the building came in, and we had originally wanted to call the website and the whole experience DOMMlife, because there is different. It's more than just the delivery. But yeah, we turned the building and we just named it DOMMlife, and since then we've gone through a couple different iterations of what it is and what it stands for and who's under the roof, and we're finally super confident in what we've accomplished, and we have the exact perfect team in place, industry experts that have been doing this for years, and we're really happy with the progress we've made and what we provide for the community.
Man, I mean, I would be pretty stoked, too, for what you've done and where it's gone, right? Now, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit before, but, I mean, you had a cancer issue yourself, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a chondrosarcoma, which is more or less the same form of cancer that a breast cancer patient will have. Mine ended up in my leg and attached to my pelvis. I have like a scar probably 2 feet long going from the inside of my thigh up to my waist, where they basically, opened up my entire leg, carved out a football-sized tumor that was attached to my pelvis. They then, used a hammer and chisel to chisel away pieces of my pelvis. I woke up in the hospital the next day, and, originally he had told me I may not walk. But I could wiggle my toes when I woke up, so I knew I'd be fine.
Right.
But he did manage to talk me into radiation treatment. At the time, they claimed the surgery had given me a 90+% survival rate. If I went with radiation, that would go up to 97, 98%. Chemotherapy wasn't very effective on my type of tumors. That wouldn't have really moved the gauge at all. So at that time, I was 23, and I figured I could recover from the radiation if I recovered from the surgery. And I wanted to be in that 98 percentile range. So I went with the radiation, and, it's a mental struggle as well as it's a physical struggle. If you've never had radiation, it's the same x-ray machine that you're getting an x-ray from. It's just turned on for 30 seconds straight and fired at one location. The radiologist will tell you have to sign a waiver stating that the treatment could kill you if they don't leave a margin around your wound or their place that they're radiating. Your leg can fall off, or whatever extremity that they're radiating can fall off. And those guys do an amazing job. Don't get me wrong; they're extremely skilled. But again, the tool that they're using isn't my preferred method of treatment. So nothing against the radiologists out there. They're extremely smart, extremely talented. But, you're basically like killing ants with a nuclear bomb. So it's not really my favorite form of treatment.
Right. So you decided to use cannabis for treatment, correct?
Yeah, about in my mid-20s, I started experimenting with it. I had swelling in my leg and, loss of feeling in my whole upper leg for years. And I was just looking for something that was going to help. I had been to all sorts of traditional therapists. I'd been all sorts of Eastern medicine, acupuncture, lymph massage, etc. And they all had various, effectiveness. Nothing really helped, or nothing was earth-shattering to me. Nothing really changed, moved the needle. And then when I would try cannabis, my leg would tingle, and that kind of freaked me out more than anything. I was like, what's going on? But I just kind of stuck through it, and stayed with it. And the more educated I became, and, the better path it ended up being for me. And once I got into the industry, I would hear and really learned about CBD and the powerful anti-inflammatory effects it has on specifically the nervous system, but your entire body, really became my treatment of choice. CBD is the non-psychoactive part of the cannabis plant. And, just for some education out there for your listeners, cannabis plant is the genus up top. On one side, there's hemp. On the other side, there's marijuana. So when you speak about cannabis, you're speaking about both hemp and marijuana. In my mind, in the grand scheme of things, marijuana is probably only 15 or 20% of the conversation. The THC gets people's eyes and it gets people excited. But the hemp and the CBD is what's going to keep people there and keep people healthy. Not to say marijuana does not work wonders for specific conditions. It absolutely does. And I'm not the one to sit here and tell you use marijuana for this and hemp for this, for the sole reason that everybody should be using CBD and hemp. You have an endocannabinoid system in your body. We didn't know this until the 1980s, or if we knew it, no one told us. And if you think about it, you have a digestive system, you have a respiratory system, you have a nervous system. If you starve your digestive system, you're not going to be around long. If you starve your respiratory system, you're going to be around for about 30 seconds. If you starve your nervous system, you're going to be around for about 10. And people starve their endocannabinoid system their whole lives. So what happens is your cannabinoid receptors are so fried and so open and just so parched that whatever form of cannabis you end up putting in your body, you do get an immediate effect from. So for someone who's never tried cannabis of any sort, and they would pick up a vape cartridge or some concentrated form of marijuana, yeah, they would feel an extreme high, because it's like if you were walking through the desert and didn't have any water for, 10 days, and you saw, a giant cooler full of water, you'd slam as much water as you could. You'd probably end up drinking 2 or 3 glasses, and then you get sick or what have you, and then you go back for more. And that's kind of what happens with CBD when you haven't had any cannabis. If you try CBD, your body's going to want more. It's going to treat it just like it's been thirsty and you're finally giving it water. So you'll take more, you'll take more, you'll take more until you're just full, kind of. And that's kind of the way that the CBD really, really proves to be the most effective, basically entry into the cannabis field. If you've never been exposed to it, I would hardly say go and try shatter or grab a vape pen or anything like that. CBD is the non-psychoactive. It's kind of the training wheels version of the cannabis. It comes in all the popular forms, gummy bears, a topical if you have any sort of skin condition. All the topicals I use on my face instead of moisturizers and toners and anything else. But really, we can put CBD in anything, and it should be in everything, because like I said, we have an endocannabinoid system. We're supposed to be wearing hemp clothing and be surrounded by hemp everything, and we're not. And that's why everybody has different pains. And then we go and prescribe whatever the doctor's getting paid most by the big pharma to prescribe, right. And you start that death spiral, and it just makes my job that much harder, but that much more effective. But that's kind of the path that I took, and I really recommend the hemp and CBD as the entrance into your cannabis experience. It can't hurt, and everybody's got some pain, and it's the most basic concept of if you sleep on the pillow wrong and you have a stiff neck, or you had a car accident when you were younger and you still have a bad back. All of that pain is, whether it's induced by you or outside trauma or you drank too much so your head is pounding, all pain is just pressure on a nerve. I mean, it's pretty basic. And whether the nerve is the swollen part, putting pressure on it from the inside out, or you have outside trauma, putting pressure on the nerve from the outside in, CBD reduces the swelling of that nerve, so you're naturally going to feel less pain. And that's really how it works. It's kind of simple. I like to think of it as simple, but it's like I said, education's 99% of my job.
Right, it's pretty much everything. All right, Todd, we're going to have to take a quick break right here. It's a 9:30 hour. We're going to go to our good friend and fellow host here, Brandon Barberio, with his strain of the week. This week we have the Afghan Kush, guys. Don't go anywhere. Here is the strain of the week.
I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert for In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR. This week's strain of the week is the Afghan Kush. The Afghan Kush, also known as the Afghan Og, is another indica strain that was brought from the Hindu Kush mountain range. This is classified as an easy-to-grow cannabis strain and is also known for its stereotypical body-type effects of a heavy indica. These effects will last for at least 2 to 3 hours, and traditionally this particular strain will be harvested and give higher counts of hashish. The plant will be sturdy and light-colored with nugs and light trichomes, and the buds are covered in numerous red and dark orange hairs. While the THC levels in the Afghan Kush are found to be around 22%, the CBD levels are also high as well, and it's great for a medical value. The aroma of this medical cannabis strain would be like a mango orange farm with a pinch of funky odor. The taste of this strain is not too harsh. This will actually have more of a bland to a fruity type taste. And the strain is also known to have an effect on the user's body more than their mind, which will definitely have that feeling of laziness or sleepiness to it. This is a wonderful nighttime strain, and due to these effects, it's most commonly used for insomnia, obviously as a bedtime medication. This is also good for stress, anxiety, and chronic pain. Once again, I'm Brandon Barberio, your cannabis expert for In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR.
All right, Afghan Kush, man. The other day we were just talking about this. Me and a friend of mine, we're talking to somebody about cannabis, right? And we heard somebody had some skunk available, and we're like, skunk, man, that hasn't been around in how long? And then we became to this conversation where it seems like, and we had Matt Berger on a few weeks ago, right? The Bubba Kush. Yep. And it seems like everything right now seems to be a Kush almost, right? It seems like it's kind of taken over the whole industry where everybody's kind of going to this Kush. You know what I mean? I know a lot of friends of mine, it's their favorites. And we have quite a few different varieties, but, great cannabis, man. Great cannabis. What do you like the most about the Afghan Kush brand?
Going back to where Matt was, it's really kind of been bred as a really great medical strain. And I really think that is the actual strength of it and where it should, where it really does lie. And it's so funny when you look at all the different phenotypes of Kush and the different things that it does. Obviously it's more of that indica-based type, but the value of it is just incredible. And that's why I always go back to it.
It just has a great high, you know what I mean? It's always right.
Oh, it is. The whole land race, the Hindu mountains. I think, like we were talking before, I think a lot of people are really trying to get back to where the land race trends are coming from. Can we get back to the original? Because everybody's bred so far out. Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that we always bring this back to medical patients, and now we have Todd Romboli on from DOMMlife, guys. And if you guys missed the first part of the show, Todd was, told he had a type of bone and joint cancer, and kind of didn't like the whole radiation thing. So, Todd, we're right in the middle discussing this, and you were discussing your view on the radiation treatment and stuff like that, but going to cannabis, how has that really helped you in healing?
Again, the switch, once you commit to cannabis and you understand that it can be an everyday, supplement almost. And again, I'm using the genus cannabis because I'm not saying to go out there and eat 250 milligrams of THC edibles every day, by no means. But once you get comfortable with, your blend of CBD and THC, and there is, as Brandon was just mentioning, there's been so much, crossbreeding of all these original strains, which is amazing for everyone, because if you do have some crazy combination of rare diseases, then you should be experimenting with all these cross strains because they should help. But yeah, I'm a giant fan of the plant-based lifestyle, and I mean, to be quite honest, that I'm 48, and at 37, I didn't know how long I would live. I would wake up every day and feel like I got into a car crash the night before, and, I obviously wasn't eating well, and the things that I was eating and drinking certainly weren't healthy for me. But once you get into the industry and you're surrounded by it, and you find out that, I can, for $1 more, have everything supplemented with CBD, well, then you don't feel those morning pains, and if you can rely on your Afghan Kush to go to sleep, then there's no need for anything else, and that's really all it becomes, is readjusting your body to get off of all these preservatives and GMOs and just cheap knockoffs of the real food that's supposed to be going in your body. Once your body clears all that poison out, it's happy to be fed every day. Your endocannabinoid system wants to be fed just like your digestive system and your respiratory system. So it really does work, and like you guys were saying, there's thousands of different combinations of strains and hybrids. And I think a lot of it has to do with your blood type, just like food allergies, what strains will work for you and won't work for you. And again, you've got the whole sativa versus indica range. And obviously your indicas are your more heavy sleep related. In the couch is the way I always used to remember it. If you're, smoking an indica, you're going to be glued to the couch, which is obviously great for nighttime. And, then your sativas are your more speedy or alert, strains, and those are good for during the day. And anyway, you're getting that, whatever your combination of THC to CBD into your system is the most important thing. I know nothing about your body or what you do during the day or what your needs are, but I know the combination of all of our products can help.
Right? I mean, and it does take a combination of products, too. I mean, we talk to a lot of doctors and things like that, where it's not, like you're saying, it's not always about just CBD. Sometimes you need certain strains, which is what we discuss every week. Sometimes you need a certain product. Things can be a lot different. Sometimes you need THC to really, kick in and help you out. And everybody's body is a little bit different. So that's what's really interesting with this all, and how it really interacts. Now, I mean, you guys started the DOMMlife thing. You were sick for a while. You're doing good. You started the DOMMlife thing. Now it's turned into this huge thing. And I mean, you have businesses within your business operating right now as well, right? You have this coffee shop. A lot of cool things going on.
We do. We really, I love the idea of having kind of, what everybody dreams of, what you want to call it, a cannabis mall or cannabis marketplace. Obviously, we follow all the local municipality laws and regulations. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do. But yeah, it's great collaborating with other people in the industry and just everybody working on their strong points. Everybody, again, back to what I was saying about, it's either a cultivation or a dispensary. No, that's a third of the industry. There's another 2/3 of the industry that doesn't operate in those two verticals, and having that collaboration around and being able to, leverage all those people's networks and co-market and co-brand stuff. That's the secret of our success. I know I can't do all this alone. I don't know everything about anything.
Right.
So 2 heads are better than 1. 4 is better than 2. So keep going. That's our plan.
I mean, we talk a lot about Arizona and like the current state of legality there. You know what I mean? Obviously, Brandon lives there. He's part of our show. We talk about it a lot. What obstacles have you found, especially in being in Arizona, to getting this up off the ground and keeping your doors open? More importantly,
obviously, for the delivery, the delivery really has nothing to do with the building. It's a completely separate vertical. And the delivery we offer, we have to jump through 50 hoops to make one delivery. It's not, by no means, this isn't Uber Eats where I text some guy who happens to be driving by a dispensary and say, run in and pick up this package and drop it off across the street. No chance. It costs, tens of thousands of dollars to bring one driver on board, and the amount of, like I said, the amount of registration and process and protocol that goes into it is incredible, and that's why not everybody's doing it. From the building standpoint, when you invent something like this, there really isn't any rules saying that you can't do it. And so really all we're doing is continuing to, implement our proprietary technology process and protocol to give us the proper just coverage on everything. We like to provide a safe space for everyone. We understand people come from all sorts of different backgrounds and have all sorts of different needs. And, to us, once you're inside the gates, everybody's a human being. Everybody feels pain. Everybody's got an endocannabinoid system. Everybody has questions, and the last thing we want to do is, discriminate against any person on this planet for any reason. We bring everybody in. It's all inclusive, and it really provides a safe environment for people to be able to, like I said, learn, ask questions. We have meetings here between two independent cannabis companies that you can't have anywhere else. You can't go and have it at the library. You can't have a meeting, at VFW. So it's really just kind of our niche and opening the doors to the community, and the community has responded amazingly, and they constantly are giving us feedback, and our team, it's there. Our team is DOMMlife. The building's the building. It's 4 brick walls,
Right.
But the team is what makes it DOMMlife, and these guys take pride in their job and pride in their work. Everybody you talk to wants to make a difference. They want to get rid of the stigma. And, the space gives everybody an opportunity to participate in that, not just my employees.
Right. Now, I mean, so you've been doing this for a while now, right? And, I mean, obviously you're on the other coast and we are over here, so you're in the West Coast. What's the biggest difference you've seen in the last few years, especially with, like, this huge legalization movement nationwide, right? Because, I mean, obviously it's kind of fresh for us out here on the East Coast. So for us, it's been real interesting in the last few years seeing the whole market kind of shift. You know what I mean? What are the biggest things that you've seen shift in the market that you're in?
Well, here, first of all, there's, limited licensing. So the value of the licenses has exploded over the last 3 years, which is great if you own a license. At the same time, the grows and the dispensaries have really done an amazing job at achieving efficiencies themselves, which is, the benefit of that to the patient is we get a wider range of amazing products at literally probably 30 to 50% discount of what the pricing was 3 years ago, and I believe that will continue to fall right through legalization. I mean, we have grows here that are hundreds of thousands of square feet, if not tens of acres, and those guys are dying to ramp it up. And once, you increase supply, you naturally lower the price to the end consumer. So, just the quality and the amount of diversity in the product selection, and happily the pricing coming down.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you seen the price come down a lot out west? I mean, we've seen numbers all over the place. It seems lately it goes up and down like crazy. Is it affordable for patients? What can we do to make this easier for patients?
What we're working on here is, again, when the law was drawn up, there was a lot of people that just didn't have the education at all. It's not like anybody purposely wrote contradictory laws, but, you've got a DHS law, you've got a federal law, then you've got the law that the the local government and law enforcement will follow. And, you know, as we talked about the terms cannabis and marijuana 10 years ago, no one knew there was a difference or if there was a difference. So there's always challenges to implementing, you know, any changes to the laws, and looking back on the laws, you always say, oh, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But what happens is the patients, you know, the thing that I would like to see the most happen, you know, which would be the easiest change. In Arizona, you're allowed 2.5 ounces every 2 weeks as a patient. You know, that was thrown out as kind of, I guess, a random, you know, benchmark 10 years ago or, you know, 9 years ago. And really that number, when you convert that into a concentrate or an edible, it's just a random number. You know, again, if you test for, you know, levels of cannabinoids in your body, you know, a girl who's 5 feet tall may have less cannabinoids than a guy 7 feet tall. It could be the opposite way around. So the government regulating what, you know, a patient should take when they can dump, you know, 1,000 OxyContin pills on them really doesn't make any sense. I'd like to see no limits for patients. Our patient base here is almost 250,000 people, and they've been forced to sacrifice their jobs and their children and their careers to be able to get off of opioids or have a plant-based lifestyle. And then, you know, you slap some arbitrary, you know, ceiling on them when, you know, if you were taking 50 Adderall and 50 Oxy a week or a month or whatever it was, and now you can't have only, you know, 3 vape cartridges a week. I mean, that's kind of the biggest point that I'd like to see changed. I'd like to see no limits for patients. They have more education. You know, the patient base here, I feel like, has more education than the patients around the rest of the world combined. I've been to every state, you know, and I've been to almost all the countries that have legal cannabis. And our patient base here is extremely educated, extremely knowledgeable, extremely motivated. Brandon's experienced it. He knows it. I mean, there's no real place that has the patient culture like we do. California and Nevada all kind of said, all right, we're going legal. That's it. We'll take the legal money. And they never really had a chance to develop their patient program, and I think they all regret it.
Right. Now, concentrates and stuff like that, are those legal there yet, or are they still highly illegal?
They did appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court, I believe. I'm not a lawyer, so my vocabulary on this, I don't want to say anything that's not correct. But if you guys are at all familiar with the Rodney Jones case, this was a case approximately 3 years ago. Patient had his card on him, got pulled over by a police officer in a non-friendly cannabis county of Arizona, ended up getting arrested, serving time for having a vape cartridge, a legal vape cartridge. And at the time, that was one of the miswritten laws where there was cannabis was considered a concentrate, marijuana wasn't. You know, the law was written improperly, so in theory, any concentrate was illegal at the time. After the appeal, everybody realized that the law was written wrong, so now concentrates are 100% legal. There is now an allotment issue that is going to be at the front and center of the conversation, which is exactly what we're talking about. You know, 2.5 ounces. And, you know, another thing that drives me crazy about the industry is we're half in English and half in metric, which is baffling to me. Stuff comes into the back room in pounds. It can then get split up into grams for some stuff and ounces for other things, and then gets reported to the governing body in grams, and your limit is in grams, but converted into ounces. So it's literally baffling. It's like the front office is talking in Japanese and the back office is talking in French. They have nothing to do with one another. Right. But yeah, at the front and center is this, you know, allotment concern where, you know, it used to be 1 gram of concentrates was 1 gram of flour, and now they're trying to slap some other random ratio on it. So in some cases, not only are you pigeonholed by 2.5 ounces of flour, but, you know, where you thought you could get, say, 28 or 56 or whatever the number is, vape cartridges that would equal your flour, now they're cutting that by 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have thought you were getting 2 ounces of flower or, whatever the number is, 56 vapes, and now you're only allowed 20, and for a patient who's fighting cancer or fighting to get off opioids, if you've got your prescription basically cut by 75% because of a court ruling, it's going to provide some, areas of controversy, and that's what we're working through right now.
Right. Now, you brought up another great issue that we're having and we're seeing across the country right now that no one seems to really have an answer for, the vape issue. How do you feel about this whole vape card issue that's going around?
It's funny you should ask. Vapes for me, I own a blueberry farm in Michigan, and it's organic. So I understand how hard it is to grow anything, and I've been forced to research organic blueberry fertilizers and pesticides for 10 years. And what I think a lot of people don't know is the additives obviously are not good for you either, whether it's the vitamin E acetate, etc. What I believe to be the real root cause of any vape issue is in vitamin E that can be in your body, depends on what toxic form you choose. The bigger issue is that even if you have organic certified fertilizers, there is trace amounts of toxic chemicals in there. There just is, and no one wants to hear it. It's true. And what happens is if you spray an organic fertilizer on any sort of plant, this mostly happens in homegrown and black market situations, and then you concentrate that fertilizer, you're going to concentrate that whatever the bad part is, the nitrogen, the glyphosate, whatever it is going to be concentrated as well. So what happens is you think you're spraying an organic fertilizer on your homegrown plant, or you're taking some shortcut, or God forbid you spray Roundup on it. Then you squeeze that down into a concentrate, and whatever chemical you sprayed on that is going to be 100 or 1,000 times more intense. And that, I believe, is the root of the whole vape issue.
I mean, it's interesting what's going on throughout the country and how each state is their approach to it. Like we see Mass is kind of taking it right off the market. You can't get a cartridge in Mass. They're not going to allow you to. They have, relooked at some of the laws, which we'll talk to Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions when he comes on here shortly about this whole issue. But it's an amazing issue. There's been a couple of fingers pointed. It's been a major health concern. Have you known anybody that's had any issues with the vape issues?
Not at all. But here again, we don't have a giant black market at all. I think. There is the black market. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, the grows and the dispensaries have done a great job at getting the prices down. So there's not a lot of benefit to going to a black market here. And all of our dispensaries do a great job. They don't put any, bad stuff in their vapes. So for us, there really hasn't been much of an effect. We continue to see people vaping all the time, and I don't think it's a great idea to pull it off the market. Obviously, you don't want anybody getting sick from anything ever, but if you compare the amount of injuries or God forbid mortalities you've had from vaping compared to any other thing in the United States, walking down the street, using a screwdriver, drinking, smoking, it's minuscule. Right. I think it's you're cutting off the nose despite the face.
That is a great thing that we talk about all the time. It's like, how many people have died per day, just let's use the heroin issue, right? The epidemic. How many people die per day of heroin than have through the vape cartridge?
Alcohol.
And it's not right.
Yeah, here in Arizona, I did some research, and more or less we have 10 people a day overdose or die from either opioids or other heroin or other heavy drugs, and we bring 5 back to life. So it's only 5 people a day that die, but 10 people overdose and 5 end up dying. We bring 5 back to life every day, and no one cares.
Right. Provides
and everyone's arguing about what tax rate we're going to have on marijuana, or some patient ordered 2.6 6 ounces, they're in trouble. I mean, it's hard seeing all this when you're immersed in the plant-based side of it, but such is life.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand. It's really interesting. We talk about all the time. It's, priorities of the country, and one of the best things to bring up is like the whole mushrooms, right? Like, I mean, there's states legalizing mushrooms, and no one's even talking about it, right? It's all about cannabis, right? And like how this one community in one state doesn't want to have a recreational cannabis market in their town by any means, but all these states are, allowing acid and mushrooms, and then all these other things kind of go in there, and no one's even talking about it. Where's that concern? You know what I mean? So it's funny how it happens, and how news takes over the conversation. You know what I mean? Now it's guys, it's 1:00. We're going to take a quick little break here. We're going to do our calls and get everything situated. And we have Timothy Fair on the line with us from Vermont Cannabis Solutions, who will bring on to talk about your law questions. So if you guys do have a question, 802-454-7762, give us a call. Reach out to us online. You can find us at In the Weeds, Prohibition Talk Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. So, guys, just reach out to us there on social media if you want. We have a couple live streams up and running, and you can also find us at WGDR.org and StonedAgeMagazine.com.
You're listening to In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR 91.1 and WGDH 91.7.
Sometimes you catch that funky breeze in the weeds.
All right, guys. Sorry about my cough today. If anybody hasn't paid attention to the weather lately, the Northeast has. We're in the winter now, guys. It's November. It's not even Thanksgiving, and we have snow everywhere. So we broke a bunch of records this week, and I'm not feeling it. I don't know how you guys are doing, but I'm not feeling it. Hopefully, everybody got their plants in by now. Which, if you didn't, then I guess that's your own fault. But right now, guys, we do have Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions on the line with us. He's going to be talking about your law concerns. One of the biggest news things I've seen this last week or two was the New York police busted a huge shipment. What's going on with this?
Oh, I know too much about this one. We just full disclosure, do represent the cultivators in this case. 106 pounds of legal Vermont hemp being shipped down to Brooklyn, New York, intercepted by a overzealous FedEx driver and the 75th Precinct, who then go ahead and post Facebook pictures of 2 officers gloating over their catch. Only problem, 106 pounds of fully legal hemp grown here in Vermont with COAs showing Delta-9 THC of 0.14, documentation showing that the cultivators were licensed under the state of Vermont, and all statements and packing materials that are required for legal transport included. Real interestingly enough, FedEx seemed to really want to get these guys, filed a complaint here in Vermont with the Williston police, stating that they thought they were transporting marijuana. Williston police did their investigation, saw the COAs, saw the registration and the license to cultivate, informed FedEx that this was legal hemp, that they would not be seizing it, and this was legal to ship. So FedEx then decided to take it to New York and try again. Once again, filing a complaint with the 75th Precinct in Brooklyn, saying they believe this was marijuana. Sure enough, those guys went right ahead, seized our clients, seized the property, and there we have it. Yet again, we are getting stymied by law enforcement officers who simply don't understand the law.
Right now, I mean, we talk about this a lot. Shipments, crossing state lines, what's legal, what's not legal. And I mean, obviously there's been issues all across the country where, they realize they get the wrong plant, I guess you could say, right?
This is still an issue, and this is a stunning example of why you can be 100% in compliance with the law. You can follow everything that we're supposed to do, and yet still have problems in this industry.
Right, and this started from a FedEx driver, correct?
We're not sure if it was the driver or somebody we're not sure. Somebody from FedEx. That's what we can say for sure.
The FedEx employee.
FedEx employee, correct.
Now, obviously in this situation, this isn't your normal situation. Not many people are shipping 106 pounds, but I mean, this did go viral. I mean, this is viral on the internet. People are kind of laughing and joking about it, but it's a serious issue that people need to understand, crossing state lines. So, I mean, how does this happen, Tim, for a company in Vermont to cross lines into New York? I mean, the shipment was going to New York, correct?
Yes, so this happens all the time. I mean, industrial hemp is legal to grow. It's legal to transport over state lines. It's legal to sell in other states. It's an agricultural commodity. After the Farm Bill of 2018, it made very clear that cannabis sativa containing less than 0.3% THC has been removed from the Controlled Substances Act. It is an agricultural commodity. It has been designated as hemp, and it is perfectly legal to transport, buy, and sell. Just like if this was a shipment of beefsteak tomatoes going to Brooklyn. Unfortunately, again, we have too many law enforcement officers who just are a little overzealous and can't give up the bad old days.
Right. I mean, we've seen this a couple times, and the ending has always been a weird, awkward solution. Hopefully this ending finds a better, weirder, awkward solution than what we've heard, recently. But, I mean, there's still people out there making busts. Now, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about how, a lot of these law enforcement and even some of these state officials have come out and said that, these testing procedures, these roadside testing procedures are finding, they can't tell the difference if there's THC or if it's CBD. So that doesn't help the situations any.
Well, we have something here. It's innocent until proven guilty. Our criminal justice system, as set up by our Constitution and has been very effective for over 250 years, states that if the state believes that a citizen has committed a crime, upon showing of a probable cause of a crime being committed, they can be charged. But it is always the state's burden to A, show that probable cause, and B, to show reasonable evidence that beyond a reasonable doubt that a person is guilty. So if you don't know if a person is innocent or guilty, you don't simply assume they're guilty and make them prove their innocence. I'm sorry. No, and if the police can't make a determination, then there's no probable cause that our clients or anybody transporting hemp has committed a crime.
Right.
And that's about it.
Right. I mean, it's just been an amazing thing, especially with the deliveries. We talk about this all the time. I mean, even if it's going onto an airplane, flying into another country. We even saw that a few weeks ago with a young lady who got herself.
That gets a little sketchier there. We're talking about adult use cannabis. Right. Now, when you're dealing with cannabis containing more than 0.3% THC, that's a whole different story.
Right. And now. That's one issue, right? And then, we're talking about these issues. And then we look at California, right? California's in the news every week, all week long, right? This last week, they suspended 394 permits for cannabis businesses. They're really going after unlicensed operators out there. What do people have? I mean, there's a lot to this, right? Because, obviously a lot of these guys have either expired permits or they just didn't go through the process of 100%. What can we tell the cannabis businesses in each state to go through so you're not one of these 394 businesses that just get their permits pulled one day?
Right. So first and foremost, I think it's important to kind of distinguish California from the rest of the country in terms of their regulatory structure. They have an incredible Byzantine structure, and what I mean by that is just an incredible levels of bureaucracy. You have local, you have county, and you have state, often sometimes in conflict with one another. You have what has existed for the last 25 years in California being turned on its head in the last year or two, and people scrambling to try to get into compliance. A lot of times you'll have, multi-generational companies that have been working in this space for, since the late 90s who are now scrambling to try to come up with the funds. So, in California, it's very easy to be out of compliance. But I think the most important message to take to other states is how important it is to be in compliance. And we can look at, the massive amount of California permits, but you can also look at Colorado. There was a company called Sweet Leaf last year in which some of their dispensary employees were looping, which is selling individuals more than the allotted daily amount. People would come in, buy an ounce, leave, come in an hour later, buy another ounce, leave, come in another hour. And the CEOs of that company not only lost their licenses, they were sentenced to a year in jail. In Massachusetts, a medical dispensary was had their license revoked. because some of their employees were disposing of cannabis improperly, mixing with the wrong substance and then disposing of it in a way that was outside of regulation. And they lost their very expensive license over that one issue. So, you can look, and most states are very, very strict on compliance, and that is why compliance with the rules is so critical. And it really is so state-specific. Just because something may be okay in Maine does not mean it's okay in Massachusetts. Because something is okay in Oregon does not mean it's okay in California. And it's very, very important if you're going to be in this space to know your state's rules and to not cut corners.
Right, and also know your state's laws that you're going into, because it's not, just because you're from one state doesn't mean that they're going to adhere to your state laws. They're going to hold on to theirs. So, all right, man. So, I mean, Todd came on the show today. He's from Phoenix. He has DOMMlife, and he's doing amazing things out there. And we brought up one big thing that everybody's talking about across the country. The whole vape crisis is still going on. This past week, we see in Massachusetts, they lifted some of these bans. But is this something we're going to see some more states step up to, you think, Tim? Or is this something that's just going to kind of go under the rug? Because, I mean, it seems like Massachusetts is the only one that's standing up to do anything about the vape crisis.
Well, what are we doing something about the vape crisis means instituting a regulatory system and passing a tax and regulated system across this country. That's what will end the vape crisis. The vape crisis is, we can sum it up to unregulated black market operators who are putting nasty, dangerous, caustic, and toxic chemicals into vape cartridges for one reason or another. Whether it's the vitamin E acetate that's used to thicken it up, whether it's the pesticides that are used in growing illegal cannabis for these, whether it's the solvents that's used in the extraction process that aren't being fully removed. That's what the vape crisis, and I put quotes around that, is all about. It's all about unregulated greed. We saw this with alcohol back at during Prohibition. Bootleg gin. People, you can still see this to this day in countries that don't regulate their alcohol. A couple hundred people died in India not too long ago from drinking contaminated alcohol, and you can still hear stories about this in the Philippines, Malaysia, and some of the other kind of third world developing nations. It's a lack of regulation, and that's what we had here. Regulate, control. You don't see too many people dying from alcohol poisoning getting from a liquor store these days. Why? Because it's very highly regulated. When you see a bottle of Jack Daniels, it's 80 proof. You know that's good alcohol. You know it's 80 proof. You know you're not going to go blind from drinking it. And if we had a regulatory system like that in place for cannabis products, we would not see any vape crisis. I think Massachusetts way overreacted by banning all vape products. The courts have now told them to pull that back a little bit. I think we have gotten over the biggest hurdle with the vape crisis. I think now we are starting to understand what happened. The vitamin E acetate now is being linked to more and more of these illnesses. Not all of them, but a great majority of them. The whole honeycut and the issue there, they are finding out that these people just dumped this stuff into these cartridges thinking it was safe. I don't think there was any ill intent. I don't think anybody intended people to start getting sick and dying.
Right.
But it was greed. It was, the stuff's probably okay. Let's throw it in. Right. Yeah, why not? Let's thicken it up, sure.
Well, it brings you back to that. It brings you back to that synthetic question, because the honeycut stuff was synthetic products that they've kind of figured they were using. You know what I mean? And then then we look at like Epidiolex and all these other things, synthetic marijuana, all these synthetic things we have problems with. Why we got to change it so much? It's definitely a crazy issue going on. We're still, I guess, haven't found the answer to it yet. But hopefully, like you said, regulation. But now,
regulations, yes, sir.
But now,
I'll tell you that.
And here comes our question: is it going to be federal regulations or is it going to be statewide regulations? You know what I mean?
And I think there's a good answer to that. And I think that like much regulation, I think the federal government should set the floor, the minimum requirements of what states are needed to do. And then I think it should be left up to states to impose either that or their own stricter regimes. Right. I'm a very big states' right advocate. If a state wants to say, no, we don't want cannabis, that's fine. I know where not to go. Right. But this really is a state issue. And I think that the states should eventually design their own, regulatory schemes are very, very similar to alcohol. Right. We got some baseline rules for alcohol. States can be more strict if they want, or they can just meet the baseline if they want. and that would be determined by the people of that state. They can vote, and they can vote in politicians at the state level who are going to do what the majority wants. And I think that's the way this whole kind of experiment in democracy was supposed to go.
It kind of follows the alcohol, tobacco out,
exactly.
It's the idea of it, right? Because, I mean, we just, here in Vermont, we just upped the smoking age to 21. It's not a federal thing, something we did in Vermont, right? So, I mean, we can do this internally. So, a lot of great questions and a lot of great concerns to have there, but we all got to come together and figure this out sooner than later.
And it is. I think we're seeing, things moving faster than certainly we ever have before, both on the state and federal level. We are very close here in Vermont to getting a tax and regulated system up. That's going to do a world of good for the industry here. We are seeing things like the Safe Banking Act making tremendous progress through our federal legislature, passing the House with a fantastic margin. We're seeing the States Act, which would allow states to make their own cannabis policies free of federal interference, having quite a bit of traction. So I definitely think we are on the right path. It couldn't happen any sooner for me personally.
I hear you there. All right, I got one other big issue that I saw this week in the news. Amazon employee was fired, right, for being a medical cannabis patient. Now, apparently it's legal. He's a legal patient. Everything in that aspect is legal. But Amazon still fired him anyways, claiming he didn't disclose that he was a medical patient. So now here comes the big issue, right? We're looking at the Americans with Disabilities Act, right, which technically bans employers from discriminating against employees with medical disabilities. How do you feel about this case, Tim? I mean, it just went to a federal court, so I mean, this could have major implications.
Well, the reason we're hearing about this, of course, is not just simply because it happened, but because there is a lawsuit from the former worker who was a warehouse employee in New Jersey who was terminated. And, we've seen this. So how case law evolves is people try and they lose and they try again and they lose and they try again, and you know what? Eventually somebody wins. There was a huge employment case. This was Coates v. Dish Network back in 2014 in Colorado, which was kind of the preeminent employment case, which basically said that because cannabis is still illegal federally, employers could terminate medical patients for use. That medical patients were not protected by the Americans with Disability Act or any other federal protections. That's kind of been the prevailing case law. We felt very strongly that it was incorrect. This case, however, is now challenging that. And what we need to see is a win. And that will I don't know if it'll happen in this case, but every time somebody moves forward with one of these cases, we've got a shot at establishing a basic fact, and that basic fact is that our medical patients have a right to use cannabis. They are using this for a medical purpose. It is a medicine. It is helping them. And the fact that they are suffering negative employment consequences as a result of using their medicine is nothing short of insane. Right. But it takes a while for the courts to get this through their head. It's not just in employment. We're seeing this in issues like contract enforcement. Mm-hmm. We're seeing this in terms of labor law. We had a great case, which may, help this case. There was a security company out in Colorado who claimed that they didn't need to pay their employees overtime because that was a federal requirement. And because they were using trafficking cannabis, they were exempt from federal law. And the court said, no. You're employing people. No matter what your business you're in, you are required to follow federal law when it comes to overtime pay. And that is great precedent for helping to show that just because you're an employer, you are not allowed to take advantage of your employees who happen to use cannabis for medical purposes. And I'm feeling, and I'm really hoping that the courts can see that and will rule the right way on that case.
Well, I mean, we've seen a few issues like this, more related to federal employment, I guess you could say, which is kind of understandable. You know what I mean? We've seen some service members get in trouble for using CBD while in service in states that are
transportation.
Yes, in states that are legal. So, how do we are we going to be able to get around this? You know what I mean? Where
these are all real, and this happens with federal contractors. If you work for a company that has a federal contract, you're also subject to these Byzantine drug testing requirements, which often only catch cannabis due to the nature of the substance. And that's something that, again, this is one of the biggest issues of the state-federal conflict. The state acknowledges that this is a medicine. You are on a registry. You are legally able under your state law to use your medicine for your medical condition, yet you are still subject to federal penalties. You are still subject to potential federal prosecution, to loss of job, to loss of student loans, to loss of Section 8 housing. All of these federal benefits, anything that derives any amount of income support or financial assistance from the federal government, if you receive any part of that, Social Security, any of this, as a, in quotes, drug addict, user of a controlled substance, you're taking a risk. It's horrifying, and it's actually kind of eye-opening to see how many facets of life can be impacted by this, whether it's student loans, colleges, education that receive Title X funding, housing and Section 8 housing, employment with federal contracts, and pretty much every aspect of your life can be impacted simply by the fact that you are a medical patient as things stand. And this is part of why it is so important that people get out, contact their politicians, and try to move this forward.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I mean, there's something that has to change. You know what I mean? And it's going to be interesting.
Definitely has to change, but the change is coming. 5 years ago, nobody would have thought we would have made it this far. And states every day we're hearing more and more states that are legalizing, and it's becoming harder and harder for the prohibitionists to make their ridiculous arguments. And it's just going to continue. I feel very confident that in the coming year, in 2020, we're going to see states like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut legalized, possibly Florida. We saw Illinois has already legalized. That'll be, now Florida, California, Chicago, all of these huge places, including the Midwest of the country that people thought would be a lot longer in coming around, are all happening and happening quickly.
Right. It is, and everybody just hold on because who knows where it's going to go, but it's coming. Now, one last thing I want to talk to you, Tim, today, and this one's kind of more of an ironic, interesting one because, most people don't listen to news until something big happens to somebody big, right? I don't know if anybody's been paying attention or if you live under a rock this week, but Neil Young, his U.S. citizenship is at risk because of his cannabis use.
Ridiculous.
Can you explain this? How this happens?
Same things. I was reading about this.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Neil Young, obviously huge singer, right? He's lived in California since the 60s, but he's always retained his Canadian passport, right? Now he's applying for dual citizenship here, and they're talking about how his cannabis use can prevent him from becoming an American. Like, how does this happen?
Unfortunately, there is still a condition for citizenship, which is called the good moral character provision. Someone who has committed a crime may be disqualified, depending on the severity. Another disqualifier, people known to have participated in torture in their native countries, and someone who may have admitted to smoking cannabis. Does not make a whole heck of a lot of sense, because I definitely put them in the same category.
Right.
This again is just yet another hypocrisy. But this is the position of the, our Homeland Security, the Citizenship and Immigration Services policy says, someone who violates federal drug law or admits to even doing it, if they have never been arrested, may fail the character test. It's just absolutely incredible to me. It's not for sure. And ultimately, I think someone like Neil Young will be granted it, but they're going to make him jump through a bunch of hoops, and it's going to be publicized, and it's ridiculous. It's just absolutely insane to say that because you have admitted to smoking cannabis in your life, you may not be morally appropriate to vote in our election, especially when you have a president like we do. It just boggles the mind. That's where we make it interesting, because as we all know, Mr. Trump and Mr. Young don't really see eye to eye. No, not at all. And for our administration, our government, to question Neil Young's morality,
is it ridiculous?
Should probably keep my mouth shut. Ridiculous doesn't even begin to state it.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I saw that and it blew my mind. But then, we always get in this conversation about, months ago, remember, Canada and the United States weren't going to allow workers within the cannabis industry to go back and forth, right? Like the United States said, if you're going to go work in Canada, you stay in Canada, basically. You're not allowed in our country. But as we've seen, Canadian businesses are coming into our country. We know people and talk to people that have dual citizenships and go to Canada and work on farms and are allowed legally to go back and forth. This just kills me. You know what I mean?
And it is so arbitrary. I have heard of instances of Canadians coming down to the United States who are in the cannabis industry who have been banned, who have received lifetime bans for acknowledging that they are in the cannabis industry. In fact, one case, there was somebody who had some investments in cannabis who was banned at the border for on being honest and answering the proper questions. And it depends on the particular point of entry. It depends on the particular guard or, Homeland Security officer that you're speaking with, and it can be an incredibly arbitrary process. There are no hard, fast rules. Ultimately, the acceptance and admission of any individual into the country is at the discretion of the individual who's processing them. But yes, just simply being associated with the cannabis industry still can result in making a person unadmissible and potentially banned for life. It's absolutely ridiculous. You have no criminal record. You can have no criminal affiliation. It can be an absolutely 100% above-board business, but simply still due to that federal illegality. And this is one of the major issues when people are saying, oh, well, it's federally illegal, but, it's really not that big of a deal. I get my prescription and I smoke, and I'm not that concerned about it. There are still quite a few very, very negative impacts of federal illegality that still exist. And it's, for a lot of people, can create quite a few problems for them.
Right, and it's ridiculous. So, lesson learned today, guys. Know the states you're going and what the laws are.
Absolutely. Give us a call. We're happy here to help anybody. If you've got a hemp business, you're shipping hemp somewhere, give us a call. Let us know. We've got some standard operating procedures. We work now with our clients for transportation. We make sure there's a network of cannabis law attorneys through any state that the shipment is passing through. We give a kind of an outlook on the particular laws of a state. But you still do get surprised, I tell you. Right. Up until just a couple of weeks ago, I would not have thought New York was that big of a concern for something like this to happen. But this event down in Brooklyn will show you that even in the states that you think have got it, you can still potentially have issues.
Right, and New York is such a weird state right now, where they're at with legality and where they're going with it. It's just kind of it's interesting. Guys, we still have, I don't know, what is it, over 52 people still serving life sentences for cannabis. So this is something that we really got to look back at. We talk to Tim every week, and we talk about equality every week and try to get people. I mean, you can't pay people back for this, right? I mean, Aaron Sandusky has just spent 7 years in prison for selling medical marijuana. So hopefully we're going to get him on the air here soon, but just run a great article on that. But guys, still, there are over 52 people serving life for marijuana charges. And those are probably charges that don't include violence, death. I won't say weapons because more likely there's probably a weapon there, but nonviolent crimes. So we'll read more about this story. We'll bring more to you guys. But again, I just want to make sure everybody realizes there's still more than 52 people serving prison for marijuana crimes, as we have politicians and corporations and all these big companies making millions of dollars off legality or legalization of this product. We need to make sure that the ones that have been convicted, have families torn apart, get some some appreciation here. So, I don't know what you do for these people. You know what I mean? What do you do for somebody that's serving a life sentence or served 10 years for helping out patients?
It brings tears to my eyes to think of.
Right.
It really does. I mean, it brings, you want to talk about a political prisoner, you want to talk about us in our modern, I just, as a criminal defense attorney too, to see anybody spend one day in prison because of cannabis, it's just unthinkable. It's absolutely unthinkable.
And it is.
And yet you were dealing with this still to this day. What's even worse now is when you're seeing people who are still being prosecuted and sent to prison for this while other people are making money off of it.
Right.
How? But, these law enforcement, these prosecutors, this mindset, they've drank the Kool-Aid. They've still have this mindset of this as a dangerous drug. And until we can get past that, until we can really change that mindset, I'm afraid we're still going to have people that are sitting in prison for something as harmless as cannabis.
Oh, definitely.
Something as harmless, beneficial. We got to start talking about this, what it really is. This is a medicinal plant. Are you going to send people to jail for golden root? Are you going to send people to jail? I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me. I just don't get it. I don't think I ever will get it.
Well, I think the biggest issues of this industry, I mean, this is an issue with every industry, right? I mean, you have people that love the industry and live by it, and you have people that are just the investors of it. The number one, the guy who makes the most money out of anybody in cannabis is not a cannabis user, never has, and probably never will smoke. He's just in it for the money. You know what I mean? And this is a lot of the issues that we talk about, part of the vape issue, part of a lot of these issues that we see in the industry is just financial greed, right? And, it's not just the cannabis industry, it's in every industry. Pharmaceutical industry is one of the most guilty, right? We will kill people for a couple of dollars in their back pocket, So guys, again, it's 1:30. We're going to go to another break here, but I want to give a huge thank you to Timothy Fair. Let's start thinking about the guys that are in prison, guys. Let's start thinking about the people that have been wrongly affected by silly laws, man. Silly laws. Tim can talk to you all day about some of these. We bring them up on the show quite a bit. Again, 106 pounds of hemp in a legal shipment gets seized. It's just... When does the stigma end? You know what I mean? You guys have any questions, comments, concerns? You can find Timothy Fair at Vermont Cannabis Solutions. You can find him online, Instagram, Facebook, website. Reach out to these guys. If you have a question about going any state that you are going to, guys, things change every day. Rules are changing every day. Colorado is going to revamp their whole medical system. They're changing all the rules. So get ready, guys. So everywhere you go, make sure you know your laws. Keep yourself out of trouble. Or make sure you know a good lawyer, right?
Give us a call. We're here to help. And thank you for everything you do, Joe. This show is a big part of getting that stigma erased and getting people on board with the reality of the situation here.
Well, we
appreciate
appreciate
you for everything you've done.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that for sure.
We'll talk to you next week, man. You have a good one, guys.
All right, guys. Now, next, let me see if I can find it here. Hopefully we have it up here. We're going to have another segment coming up here shortly with Thomas Markholm of the Vermont Grow Coaching. Let me see if we can get this back up. But guys, again, we cannot stress this enough. We talk about it all the time on the show. You guys just don't understand. Call the state you're going to. It's not a joke. I mean, sometimes what's legal here is not legal there. As we've seen, legal shipments, legal these, legal that. Medical patients are getting busted. It's everywhere. But right now, guys, we're going to take a quick little break. Thomas Markholm of Vermont Grow Coaching and a tip. Grower's tip.
And welcome to Grower's Guide, your weekly beginner-friendly cannabis tips and tricks. Only on In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, WGDR 91.1 FM and WGDH 91.7 FM. Or online on Facebook and WGDR.org. Today on Grower's Guide, we're going to be talking about the dreaded spider mites, what they are, as well as how to treat them in your gardens and grow rooms. So what are spider mites? Spider mites are a type of arachnid similar to a spider or a tick. They range in color from a pale white to a dark black and are almost microscopic. Spider mites tend to live and feed on the underside of your plant's leaves. Signs you may have spider mites include curling leaves, sporadic yellowing spots on the tops of your leaves, or webbing like a spider web traveling from leaf to leaf or from leaf to branch on your plant. If you think you may have spider mites, you should grab your microscope or jeweler's loupe and take a look at the underside of the plant's leaves. In most instances, if you have spider mites, you will see them crawling on the bottoms of the leaves, usually with some sort of spider-esque webbing present. They're very hard to detect, as even the largest spider mites are usually only about 0.5 millimeter in size. So what's so bad about spider mites? Spider mites travel via wind and their webbing. They can travel from plant to plant, or from plant to person and back to plant. This is most worrisome when one has both an outdoor garden as well as plants indoors. A person can easily and unknowingly transfer spider mites on their clothing and skin to other gardens and grow rooms. Spider mites spread rapidly and eat the nutrients from the leaves that they prey on. The females can lay hundreds of eggs. They thrive in warm, dry climates. In a perfect environment, eggs can easily hatch in as little as 3 days. So how do you treat spider mites? At Vermont Grow Coaching, we like to stray away from toxic chemicals, going with a more natural approach. Without considering the health benefits of using a more natural method, you still run the issue of killing other beneficial insects and microorganisms while attempting to rid your plant of the mites if using toxic chemicals in your process. First and foremost, if you're growing more than one plant, make sure to thoroughly check your other plants for spider mites. Once you've confirmed that your other plants have not been affected, you should quarantine the infected plant. If the plant has a great deal of mites, we at Vermont Grow Coaching prefer to dispose of the plant. Don't put it in the compost, but instead burn it in a fire pit or a fire barrel. If your plant only seems to have a few leaves affected so far, you can easily save it from infestation. Remove the affected leaves and dispose of them in a fire. Once the affected leaves have been removed, you should drench the plant in an insecticidal soap. At Vermont Grow Coaching, we like to mix a 1/2 gallon water to a 1/4 gallon of 91% iso alcohol and 2 tablespoons of dish soap. You should treat the plant 2 to 3 times over the next 7 to 10 days to ensure that you have killed all of the mites. Once the plant has been cured, you can easily reintroduce it to your growing space. While treating your quarantine plant, Vermont Grow Coaching strongly suggests that you clean your tent and grow room with the same insecticidal soap that you are treating the infected plant with. Once clean, you should add ladybugs and predatory mites to help fight off any eggs or mites that may have been missed. When treated correctly, ladybugs and predatory mites can be indispensable benefits to your grow room. This will help protect your other plants and prevent future infestation as well. Don't forget, spider mites spread quickly. Make sure to clean your body and change your clothes whenever venturing from one garden or grow room to the next. We hope you've enjoyed this week's segment of Grower's Guide. You now have a general idea how to identify and eradicate one of the most common horticulture pests from your grow room. If you have any questions about today's segment or want to set up a consultation appointment, please feel free to reach out to Vermont Grow Coaching at vermontgrowcoach.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram or contact us directly at 802-342-5381. Again, this is Tom with Vermont Grow Coaching, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Grower's Guide on In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio on WGDR 91.1 FM and WGDH 91.7 FM.
All right. Huge thank you, Thomas. Bugs, man, mites. Huge issues, right? I mean, indoors, outdoors.
Oh, yeah, all the time. You see those big articles that are coming out with people that are literally starting to fight bugs with bugs. You know, that's like the newest thing, right? Where you have these bugs that are predators and you have bugs that are carnivores and they're just eating the bad bugs and it's like a big war.
Well, and that's the best way to take care of it, really, right? Because, I mean, people don't think about it, but, I mean, it happens a lot of times throughout the world in many different areas where, you know, one thing gets eaten by another thing, and we introduce those other things to these things, and we make a new thing, and it gets all crazy. But in this situation, I mean, bugs are hard to get rid of, right? We talk about like spider mites and things like that, where even when you think you get rid of them, they're kind of like lice, right? They just keep coming back. Like a month later, it's like all the eggs hatch, and here comes a whole new batch of mites, right? And it comes, and then everybody's like, oh, I got rid of it. 3 weeks later, they have it. Oh, I got rid of it. 3 weeks later, they have it. Oh, I got rid of it.
Right.
3 weeks later, they have it. It's one of the hardest things to get rid of, especially because you have to take your whole room down. You have to sanitize your whole room. You have to sanitize all your surrounding areas. If you have animals, if your animals go outside, I mean, there's a lot of little issues to it. If you're in a tent, if you're in a room, if you're going to other people's grow areas and seeing what they have, if they have bugs, it's very easy to get them and transport them. We talk to a lot of the best growers and that we know, right, Brandon? And a lot of these guys are either stripping down, they're taking showers, they're going naked.
Oh, yeah. They're all in hermetic suits. They're all in the spray out system. They won't even go into them unless everything is literally perfectly sanitary. Yeah.
Right. No, and that's the way it should be. And especially when we talk about medicine, we talk about medicine a lot, and it's, even when we're talking with Todd about quality of products and stuff like that, there's many businesses out there like Clean Green, Certified, these companies where you can either get your stuff listed organically, you can get it certified, clean. There's all these different things that you can do to make sure that people know that your products are cleaner than anybody else. Look for those signs, right? Now, we only have a few more minutes left of the show, guys, so we're going to get back to Todd. Todd's got DOMMlife out here in Arizona, an amazing company. Brendan's been out there. He was talking about it a little bit earlier about what really makes DOMMlife stand out above the crowd. There's not many things like it in the country. Recently, we just seen the Cannabis Cafe open up in L.A. Todd, how do you feel about this, this thing growing outside of Phoenix?
We have plans for expansion. I don't know that we'll end up. The good part about what we do is it's scalable. A lot of it is our own proprietary tech and procedures and protocols. So for us, we have a kind of optimized 800 square foot version that we're going to roll out, which is just our cafe concept with the CBD. And then as we get different partners in different states, we can approach a larger concept like we're doing here. It's just a lot harder to go out and shop for 8,000 square foot buildings than it is 800 square foot buildings.
Right.
But we feel like what we've built is scalable. If you look at any other industry, I use the alcohol industry, as an example. As far as being able to consume, you're never going to be able to consume in a dispensary. You can't make a drink in a liquor store. You can't take your medication in CVS. So I think you're going to see a lot more of the social side of it and the beyond the dispensary, which is kind of the zone that I like to think we live in. Is when we started, all of the media and all of the support for everybody was based on when you walk through the door of a dispensary or a cultivation. And then once you have your product and you go home, there's really nothing, Mm-hmm. So for us, we really wanted to, give the community an area where it was socially acceptable to come and talk and just socialize, and that's what I think is missing. And I think that's the piece that you're going to see progress. It's not easy or cheap to get a cultivation. It's not easy or cheap to get a dispensary. A lot of people think, I'm going to apply for a dispensary license in, a more liberal state, and, I'm going to get it because, I'm a minority and I have a great business plan and I know the guy on the board or whatever. Well, just because you get the license doesn't mean it's easy. You turn it on, you start printing money. That's the last thing that happens. Your troubles really just start when you get the license. So every part of the business is challenging. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But there's there's whatever number you want to slap on the industry, 10 billion a year, 100 billion a year in 2 years, 510, whatever number you're going to slap on it, it's going to be more than just your dispensaries and your cultivations. If you look at the gold rush theory, it wasn't the people selling, out there buying the gold. It was Levi's and the people selling the pickaxes and stuff. So I think you'll see a lot more expansion of those arms of the industry. And, this is a really strange time. You know, I grew up during the tech boom and the dot-com boom, and I was trading for that. I traded through 9/11. You know, I traded through the real estate crash. And all of these were the true definition of bubbles. You know, there was a lot of fraud going on. No one really knew what was going on. You know, in the cannabis industry, you're talking about, you know, a market that has been mature, but the legal side of it is infantile. You know, so it's really, you know, just a bizarre situation where we're in, where, you know, there's, you know, that whatever number you want to throw out there, 10 to 20% of the population that are using cannabis, or using it and admitting to it, or not admitting to it, or however those numbers get told. You know, I don't think that people are moving into California, which probably has the highest percentage of cannabis users. I mean, they're not. They're moving out of California, you know. So in a state where it's legal, you then have people admitting to it's legal, you know. So it's a much bigger percentage of the population than you see. And like I said, in a market that could be comparable, like a pharmaceutical vertical or any other, you know, giant S&P vertical, there's infinite number of ancillary support businesses that support that. And I think that's where you're going to see the next big boom. You know, you buy a dispensary, you can only stuff so many people through the door, period. Whether it's 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 in the big ones in Vegas, can't fit any more people through a door, you know. And I think you're going to see that as the walls come down and as whatever happens federally happens, whether it's just a decriminalization or there's specific verbiage in the law that comes out, you know, that's what's really going to open up I think the opportunity, as well as unlock the value in the business. You know, you've got people that are not just those 130 license holders or 650 license holders or whatever the small number of license holders is in every state. You know, you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of small businesses around them that are really going to thrive, and those are the people that are going to hire. You know, when you see this consolidation going on with these giant billion-dollar companies, is it good? Yeah, it's great that they're taking over the industry versus the Philip Morrises and the Pfizers, without a doubt, and those guys have the funds to streamline operations and bring prices down. But those aren't the people that are going to be creating jobs. They're probably going to, unfortunately, be losing jobs. You know, as you accumulate dispensaries in one state or one area, you don't need a general manager and a manager and a, you know, COO for every location. You know, so those jobs kind of go away. But as the, you know, laws come down and all these other verticals open up, those are the jobs that are available, and I think that's where you're really going to see the growth.
Right. I mean, so now you said obviously you've been in the trading market for a while, right? You've seen a lot of markets, you've dealt through them, you've traded through them. Now, you know, we talk about this a lot in the show about the CBD bubble. You know what I mean? It's obviously it's not just a cannabis thing; it's more of a CBD thing. Like as our technologies go, and we're realizing, you know, more about our endocannabinoid systems, and what that means to us. Do you think the CBD market thing this bubble is gonna pop, or do you think it's just gonna keep on steamrolling?
You know, in terms of the amount of people using CBD and the demand for it, I think that's going nothing but higher. You know, as the more education gets out there and the more people try a gummy or a tincture or whatever, you know, that piece of the industry will grow, the demand side. Right now, I think you've got sort of this goldrush.com feeling where everybody in the world is going to go out and, you know, try to buy a cheap tincture and resell it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. I think that part of the industry will get flushed out, just as any mature industry will. You'll be left with just the really innovative quality products and the brands. So is there going to be, if there's 10 million CBD users now in 5 years, is there going to be 20 or 30 or 40? Yes. But if there's 10,000 CBD companies now, there's not going to be 30,000 CBD companies in 10 years. There'll probably be 2,000, and I think that's really what you're seeing now. I think the demand will increase, but the businesses will get flushed out because, not everybody can sell CBD. I mean, it's just, there's just too much competition.
Right. I mean, that's the big question. I mean, we talk about it a lot. It's kind of like, the CBD bubble, will it burst? Will it become, CBGA? Will it become something else? Will it become full spectrum stuff, which is what we talk about all the time, especially when we talk about patients, man, because it's not just about CBD. There's, how many other cannabinoids found within a plant that we discuss every day, and like you said, everybody ticks a little differently, so they're gonna take something a little different that they're gonna need to feel better. We talked to Dr. Bob and we talk about the overall conscience of health. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the person that goes and works out at the gym for 4 hours and heads to McDonald's and gets a number one. You know what I mean? Supersized because they're hungry. You know what I mean? It's kind of defeating the whole process here. You know what I mean? Or drinking Diet Coke. You know what I mean? Like what the heck are you doing? So it's very interesting. And as far as the markets go, I mean, we watch the markets. We don't really report on markets a lot, but we see things go up, we see things go down, we see things crash, we see things rebound. I mean, that's it for every market that's out there. Obviously, the cannabis market is just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. I mean, I don't think anybody has anything to worry about that. It's just I think we emphasize a lot on the CBD aspect of it. Maybe that's what we need to be doing to get the legalization through, and then we can get real testing done, just like they're doing in Yale right now, real human testing. So congratulations to Yale. We give them a big shout out, and to CT Pharma for making things happen down there in Connecticut. Now, again, today, guys, another great show. We're talking to Todd Romboli of DOMMlife, who also is a cancer survivor, right? So, very great things they're doing down there. Todd, just one last time, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and then just give them a little bit of a sign off on DOMMlife.
Sure. Well, we're in Phoenix now. We're executing deliveries all over the state. Our DOMMlife building is located at 3123 East Thomas Road in Phoenix. That's 32nd and Thomas. You can find us on Instagram at DOMM.life. Facebook is DOMMlife. You can call 833-DOMM now or answer any questions you have. Your other guest was amazing, attorney, extremely knowledgeable, great guest. We love answering questions. The same way he's excited to get on here and talk about everything that is going on in the industry. We do too. He's right. You guys are right. Stuff changes by the day, by the hour, by the minute. Call us. We know what's going on. We find out first. And our website, DOMM.life, super easy. You can go there and click on our delivery to see if you qualify for our marijuana delivery, which is obviously right now only in Arizona. We'll be expanding to Puerto Rico soon, as well as hopefully across the country. Our first location for DOMMlife, again, here in Phoenix. Instagram is DOMM.life. Facebook's DOMMlife. www.DOMM.life. 833-DOMM now. Thank you, guys. I really, really appreciate your time. It's amazing. And let me know if you guys need anything, ever.
Hey, man, we appreciate what you're doing. And then did you just say Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico is on the expansion list. We're hoping to get delivery started down there early next year.
Nice, man. That is amazing. Congratulations on that. And guys, if you are in the Phoenix, Arizona area, or you want to check out what these guys are doing, it's a great model. They're doing it. It's working really good. A lot of what we attend or try to be out here in the East Coast, these guys are doing. Give Todd a call. Huge thank you to you guys. A big shout out to our co-host, Brandon, who's been awful quiet today. Thank you for joining us as well today. We had a great strain of the week. We had a great grow tip, and we're going to end the show here really quickly with a health and wellness tip from Jesselyn Dolan of the Vermont Cannabis Nurse Association and Nurse Grown Organics. You guys got to go check them out. They are online as well. And again, guys, if you want to support the show, we are online in the Weeds. Facebook, In the Weeds VT Instagram, We Talk Radio, Twitter. We're out there. We're everywhere. Reach out to us. Let us know what's going on. If you guys, again, have any law questions, Timothy Fair's on every week with us. We'll ask him any questions that you may have, and we'll try to let you guys know any new updates. And as we all keep talking about, I mean, it feels like we beat a dead horse every week, but every week something seems to change a little bit somewhere else. You know what I mean? So a lot of these are reminders, guys. A lot of these things are just educational points we will make sure you know. And feel safe. So that way when you do hop on a plane, you do go to a foreign country, or you head home for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, your turkey doesn't get stuffed by a cop because, you're doing the wrong thing in the wrong state. Just make sure, guys, with the holidays are coming up, that all your shipments, all your deliveries, and all your road trips are safe. That's the only thing we need to know, that you're safe, because every day we read something that's a little obnoxious. But anyways, guys, Todd, thank you again. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon. And when you get to Puerto Rico, if you ever need a grand opening guy, I'd love to come down and help you with that. So
sounds great.
We have a few friends there.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, Joe. Appreciate it, Brandon. You guys are great.
Hey, man, keep up the good work.
Hey.
We can't do it without people like you, man.
All right. So it's a team effort.
All right. So, guys,
we're all in this together.
Yes, that we are.
Exactly.
We are. So, guys, again, we want to apologize for not being on air the last couple of weeks. We did have a couple technical difficulties due to snow and power and internet here at the studio one week, and then our own computer meltdown last week. But we're up and running. We'll be back. We're going to be here every week. If you guys want to reach out to us again online in the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, you can find us everywhere. Huge thank you to Brandon. We're going to end the show here shortly, once I get it back up and running here, with Jessalyn Dolan, Vermont Cannabis Nurse Association. And what they are doing, guys, is amazing. They got a brand new logo. Go check them out. And I want to give a huge shout out to the Harvest Cup, which just happened last weekend down in Worcester, Mass. Another great East Coast event. I know you were at one a few weeks ago, Brandon. This was one that we were able to judge, the CBD category, which was also the entrance to the World Food Championships. So congratulations to all the winners from the Harvest Cup this weekend. It was a great event. And guys, keep your heads out, your eyes open, because there's more events coming up. To get the headies coming, there's more. So don't go anywhere. We'll get back to you guys next week. And here we go. We're off. Brandon, thank you, sir.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
And this is Jessalyn Dolan from Vermont Cannabis Nurse Association. Or maybe not. Might be having a little technical difficulty there. We thought we had it. I thought I heard this play earlier. We'll try one more time. No, it must be a blank. Sorry about that, guys. We will find something else here really quick for you. Unfortunately, we don't have that working for us. Oh, man, that stinks. What can you do? You still there?
I am.
Man, what's going on here, huh?
I said, you got gremlins in the studio? What are you doing over there? Normally you have everything just queued up and it just, right away, no problem. Go.
Normally we do. I did. It was queued up. I thought I heard it earlier. But we're going to go and we'll get a archive health and wellness tip from Jessalyn. And that's it. Here we go. I got another one for you guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. See you next week.
Hi, this is Jessie Lynn Dolan, cannabis nurse, researcher, educator, and consultant, founder of the Vermont Cannabis Nurses Association, and co-owner of Nurse Grown Organics, bringing you a weekly tips, whole plant medicine, to whole person healing tips. This week's information comes from a nurse in Massachusetts, Deborah McCullough Hopkins. And I chose to use this tip this week because of the exciting outcome that came for herbalists nationwide regarding fire cider. Besides upping your vitamin C, getting out in nature, and getting a good night's sleep, what other steps can you take to boost your immune system? Why not consider combining elderberry elixir with fire cider and CBD oil? Elderberry alone has gained much mainstream popularity as an immune booster, as has fire cider. An elderberry concoction is abundantly sticky sweet, and a shot of fire cider will grow hair on your chest. Each alone not the most palatable, but together the rather stimulating essence of tangy tart sweetness can be life-affirming once you get used to it. From the moment you take it, it delivers a full body sensation, letting you know that backup support has arrived. Elderberry has many promising benefits. The most well-known is an antioxidant. Human studies are few, but in rats, elderberry polyphenols were found to support immune defense by increasing the number of white blood cells, according to Healthline.com. Fire cider is a well-known, timeless herbal remedy made by combining fermented apple cider with other strong herbs and other popular antioxidant-producing plants like ginger, jalapeno, onion, lemon, oranges, turmeric, and garlic infused together to create an immune strength-building potion in its own right. Fire cider recipes have been handed down for generations and generations. Elderberry is available as a product, brand name Sambucol. Both are a bit pricey. Purchasing fire cider or Sambucol in addition to buying CBD oil will cost you a pretty penny. So let's talk about you making your own. It's fairly easy, requires some assembly and preparation of ingredients required to create these tinctures, but mostly requires your patience and what we call a tincture of time. You can buy dried elderberries. You have access to the fruit. Pick it once it turns its beautiful telltale purple ripe, then place the berries on drying screens in the dark, well-ventilated space. When they appear firm and shriveled, they're ready to place in a glass jar and be fully covered with food-grade glycerin or half-and-half mixture of glycerin and organic vodka, dealer's choice. The mixture is capped using screw-top lids and placed in a dark cabinet for at least 6 to 8 weeks. When ready, strain the berries from the elixir. Discard the berries in the compost and jar the purple awesome sauce for daily use. To make your own fire cider, get a large bottle of ragged fermented apple cider and pour it into a large 1.5-liter ball jar with enough room to find chunks of 1 to 2 medium chopped onions, 4 to 6 cloves of diced garlic, large slices of 1 to 2 jalapeno peppers, and maybe grate a fist-sized piece of ginger to add to the mixture. Then top it off with 1 orange and 1 lemon cut into quarters and a tablespoon or 2 of turmeric or curcumin. Cover this mix. Dash it next to your elderberry brew. They will both be ready to strain and use at the same time. Once strained, you can add local honey to your fire cider to sweeten the mix if you'd like. Smaller, more manageable jars filled with yeast is nice to have prepared to make that morning shot drink. Morning routines involve taking a 30 ml shot glass and filling it half full with the elderberry preparation, followed by filling the other half with the homemade fire cider. And to tickle your CB2 immune receptors, maybe add a few drops of CBD oil. Drink that daily and namaste healthy. Again, thank you, Nurse Deborah McCullough-Hopkins, for today's whole plant to whole person medicine and healing tips. This is Jessie Lynn with Vermont Cannabis Nurse Association and Nurse Grown Organic.